This is Miss J again, and I hope that all is well with you. Today's topic is about attendance and communication. So I'm going to do this because I just feel like being silly on this video. Fact. Did you know that 41% of people who are fired on a yearly basis is fired due to lateness? Fact. Did you know that 21% of people who are fired on a yearly basis are fired because of lame or fake excuses? Fact. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they have documented that 2.8 people in our country are fired because of being absent. Too many days away from the job. So, this is an issue, an ongoing issue. And I'll even share with you that I was one of those people. It was a long time ago, maybe about 17, 18 years ago, I believe it was, that I was fired from a job. And I was fired due to lateness. And here is what the bad part about all of that was. One, I was making really good money. I regret that. The second thing is I was late due to a very bad habit, and it was a bad habit, my coffee. You see, in the building where I was working at that time had a coffee shop on the first floor. And I had to pass this coffee shop on my way to my company's building before I was signed into security on the first floor and then go upstairs to my floor. So I would stop in the coffee shop, which always had a line. And I'm thinking, oh, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. And while that 2 minutes was 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late every day. And this went on for a while. And sooner or later, it did catch up to me. So it seems like that I love my coffee more than I love my job, huh? Well, I've corrected that. And here's the other thing, I make mistakes, but I don't repeat mistakes. So that will never, ever happen again. And I regret being fired because of my lateness. So I'm just sharing it happens. And I'm sure that there's somebody probably in this class who's been fired as well. Probably two people at least have been fired before. And I'm sure that you regret it just like I regret it. So let's continue. So there are legitimate reasons why people may be absent from work. Um, they're ill, their child is ill, due to burnout, even family obligations. But however, if it is not handled and handled in a timely manner, then sooner or later you will be fired. And I want to put a pin in it for a second. I want to say this. Some people think that because they always have documentation to cover their absences, that that's going to save you a job. Well, you're right and you're not right. It will save you a job for a while, but sooner or later, it's going to come down to you being present on your job and you're not being present. See, when you're not in your place and you're not at work, it actually affects the whole department. It even affects the organization. What happens is when you're not in place with you're late all the time, or people don't know if you're going to even be showing up to work or not, then it affects the workflow. It affects if deadlines are being met. And whether you believe it or not, whatever you do and whatever you are hired to do is really important. And if you're not doing it, then there is a loss somewhere down the line, right? So, bosses, the worst position that you want to be in is that a boss is not sure if you're going to be coming to work. That means that you're not accountable, right? And then it also affects the other employees that are there as well. There's this trust thing that will happen. And people who can't trust you to do something and to be where you're supposed to be, it affects everyone around you. So you thinking, oh, it's just me and I'm isolated and it really doesn't affect people that way. No, it does. When you're not in place, it has a ripple effect. Okay, so absenteeism is when you are absent from work on a regular basis, and it is calculated either per week, per month, per quarter, or per year. Okay, and I want to also tell you this, and I know you're not going to believe me. All right. Because whenever I say this, nobody ever believes me. But I'm going to tell you this. So there was this one job that I worked on, and I worked for that job for 5 years. It actually is when I started being an instructor, and I used to teach youth between the ages of 18 to 24. And for 5 years, hear me good, for 5 years, I was only absent 4 days in 5 years. And I'll tell you, three of those times was because I was sitting in a dentist's office. Okay, it's personal. I was sitting in a dentist's office, okay, and could not get to work, getting root canals and stuff. All right. And then the other time is because I was really sick. I was not feeling well. But otherwise than that, 4 days in 5 years, I know people don't believe me when I tell them that, but it is true. Okay. So I love my job and I wanted to be there. Right. And so I hope that whatever your next step is, whatever your job is, that you're going to love it. So here are some things that I want to say. I have to put on my glasses so I can read this, my little note here. So here are some things that I want to give you to assist you. So there are some keys to communication. So, number one, when you are talking to your boss, we want you to be effective. We want you to be able to talk to them so that they understand you and that they hear you. So, respect the time of your boss, right? Respect them and what they do. You don't have to like them, but respect them and what they do. So when you are giving them information, be clear and succinct. And what succinct means, it means brief. So be clear and brief in the information. If you can do it in a line or two, then do that. I'm so sorry that I am late today because my daughter was not feeling well and I had to wait for the daycare provider to come to me, who was late also. And I'm so sorry. It was beyond my control. It won't happen again. That's something that, is really, really quick, really to the point. You gave detailed information, and your boss should be accepting of that unless you give that reason and excuses all the time. Then it's not going to work. But definitely explain. The next thing is to be polite, okay, and be positive. All right. Don't be woe is me and what have you. And oh my God, it's the end of the world. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. Don't do that. But be polite and what we call polite is sometimes like ask permission, like put in a request. Would you mind if it's okay? Please make it okay that I have to blah 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 blah. Get them to be on your side, and the best way to do that is to ask for permission. And if you're the kind of worker who's where they're supposed to be anyway, then it's really not going to be an issue. Okay. And then be apologetic. Be apologetic because maybe you have just interrupted their time, their meeting or what have you. So be apologetic. But here's something else you need to be apologetic about. With you not being in place, there's a workflow issue that have just been disrupted. So please acknowledge that. And that if you're not there, then that means that a coworker of yours is going to have to do your work. Right? So now they may have a double load. All right. They got to do their work and now they got to do your work. So be apologetic to the people that are around you who you are affecting. And then we want you to be proactive. And proactive is that you think ahead of time. You put things in place. So for example, always give this example when you have a child in particular, right? You're a loving parent. You're a loving parent. But here's the thing, you need support so that maybe the daycare provider does not have to call you first, but maybe they can call grandma first. And then if grandma thinks that it's really, really serious, like I got to take your child to the hospital, then you are called next. But your child messing up their pamper and they run out of pampers, that's not an emergency, right? So be proactive. Send extra pampers, right? But be proactive. And then also, if you know that you have a doctor's appointment, like if your doctor's appointment is 5 months from now, let them know today that it's 5 months from now. And then as you get into that month, then you remind them again, like 2 weeks, well, in 2 weeks, I have a doctor's appointment. Because the more notice that you give, the better. The worst thing is when you call out sick the morning of, and you should be calling out a minimum of an hour before you are due to report. So if you're supposed to report to work at 9 o'clock, then your boss should know that you're not coming in at 8 o'clock. And that's like the cutoff. So that means that you could call them 6:30, 7 o'clock earlier, even the night before. But you should not be calling them at 8:59 talking about I'm not coming in. That should not be the case because you definitely don't want that job. Now, do real serious emergencies happen? Uh-huh. And when you're calling them at 8:59, you should be telling them I'm on my way to the emergency room. That's serious. Okay, so there's an assignment that is attached to this video about attendance and communication. And what you're going to find is you're going to find different scenarios that you're going to be asked. And then you're going to consider, do I think that it is necessary for me to take the time off for this? Do I think that I should be late for this scenario? And then if you don't, state why you should not. And then there's another box where it asks you, how are you going to communicate this to your boss? Okay, so please listen to this video, maybe even re-listen to the video so that you'll be able to answer those questions correctly and be professional as well. So I hope that this video was helpful to you. Again, this is Miss J.